بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Allah, teach us what will benefit us and benefit us with what you taught us, and increase us in knowledge, O Lord of the worlds. So we're continuing in our class of Kitab al-Buyur min Bulugh al-Maram min Hafidh ibn Hajar. So we're going to be doing the book of transactions from Bulugh al-Maram. Now the copy that we mentioned is Tahdhib Bulugh al-Maram, which adds some of the ahadith from Umdat al-Ahkam that are not originally mentioned in the book. And in our last two classes, we covered three hadith. We covered the hadith of Rafi' ibn Khadij, radiyallahu anhu, which speaks about the virtue of sales and business and transparency in transactions. Then we talked about the hadith of Jabir, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And we said that the hadith of Jabir is a fundamental in understanding what is permissible or impermissible with regards to the things that we stipulate in contracts and the conditions that we make. And then we covered the hadith of Aisha, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, al-Mu'mineen Aisha, Abdurrahman. And we said that the hadith of Aisha, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, was a fundamental in understanding what types of conditions invalidate the agreements that we make, and that an invalid condition does not invalidate the contract as a whole. And that is related to the story of Barira radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And today we're going to cover hopefully 6 hadith. And as we move forward, more of the concepts will be interconnected. And so we won't have to spend as much time as we did on the others. So today we'll start with the hadith of Amr ibn Shu'ayb عن أبيه عن جده. قال المؤلف رحمه الله تعالى وعن عمرو بن شعيب عن أبيه عن جده قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يحل سلف وبيع ولا شرطان في بيع ولا ربح ما لم يضمن ولا بيع ما ليس عندك. From Amr ibn Shu'ayb, from his father, from his grandfather, who said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it is not permissible to have a loan with a sale, nor two conditions in a sale, nor profit from something that is not that you're not held liable for, nor selling something that is not with you. So this hadith pertains to those conditions that although they seem allowed on the outside, they seem apparently permissible, they end up causing something to become impermissible. So these conditions, although they look permissible because each component of what you're doing is permissible, when you put them together, it's impermissible. So what are these 4 things? Naha an bay'un wa salaf. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam forbade a sale and a loan. One of the things that's very important in studying Bab al-Mu'amalat and studying the financial transactions is understanding the concept and the scenario behind it. So what's a scenario of somebody giving you a sale and a loan? Someone comes to you and says, hey, I need to borrow $1,000 from you. And they don't want to give you $1,000 without getting something more from you. Say, sure, I'll loan you $1,000, but you have to buy my bicycle. Why would he have you buy his bicycle and loan you $1,000 at the same time? Because he's going to take whatever interest he's not charging you on the loan and put it into the price of the bicycle. If he sold you the bicycle, it might be $50. But instead, he tells you the bicycle is worth $150. Because he doesn't care about the bicycle. He wants to make sure that he's getting something on top of the money that he's loaning you. Or the opposite, where someone comes and says, I want to buy this from you. So I won't buy it from you until I can loan you more. Why is he going to loan you more? So that you purchase more. So it becomes a symbiotic relationship between giving you liquidity so you can buy more. So the loan, he's benefiting from it directly. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullu qard," and I'm sorry, it's reported as a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, although that is not authentic, but it's a principle in fiqh that scholars are agreed upon, and that is kullu qardin jarra naf'an fahuwa riba. Every loan that accrues some benefit, then it is riba. So here the Prophet ﷺ is telling us in principle, don't give loans and sales together, because you're either going to offset the cost of the loan and the sale, or the sale and the loan. So it becomes an artifice, hila, towards making money off of lending, although you say you're not. He then sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Wala shartani fi bay'," and no two conditions in sales. Now, when we first hear this, we say to ourselves, how can it be? How can we have any purchase or sale where we're not allowed to charge, or we're not allowed to make a condition or more than one condition? What does this mean? We've already seen in the hadith of Barira that Aisha radiallahu anha not only purchased Barira's freedom, but also made conditions. And in the hadith of Jabir, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam purchased Jabir's camel and made conditions. And Jabir made conditions upon him. So if we look through the corpus of the Sunnah, we find that there are many instances where people make conditions and there are more than two conditions. So what does this hadith mean then? It means any two conditions that lead to something forbidden. For example, I will sell you this bottle of water, okay? But you can't drink it and you can't give it away. What's the benefit of me selling this bottle of water then? You get no benefit, I benefit from you. Anytime one party benefits and the other party loses, it's not riba, but it's the same meaning. It's like, say, for example, saying, you and I were going to go into business, okay? But every time we make profit, you give me $5 off of every $100, then we split it 50-50. What have I done? I've guaranteed that I don't see a loss. I've guaranteed that you see a loss. So when I sell you something and I say, I'll sell this to you, however, you can't sell it and you can't drink it. Am I supposed to just look at the beautiful bottle of water? It's a collector's item? No. So that type of condition of placing two or more conditions that negate the objective of the sale or the transaction is impermissible. So the idea of no two conditions in a sale are those two conditions that, just as if it's not permissible to bring together two contracts that would cause something impermissible, it's not permissible to bring together two conditions that would cause something to be impermissible. For example, if I were to lease you a building, okay? And I said, from the condition of this lease is that you put a down payment of $5,000. Okay? And from the condition of this lease is that if you break the lease, you pay me for the cost of the building. What do those two conditions effectively do? They guarantee all of the profit for me, and they guarantee all of the loss for you. Or if we had a partnership, similarly. So the idea is that we don't create conditions that would effectively negate the objective behind the contract. Then he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَلَا رِبْحُ مَا لَمْ يُضْمَنْ, and not taking profit that you do not have liability for. What does this mean? This means that you profit off of something that you don't have ownership of, you don't have responsibility for, and you're not liable for loss in. And all of the examples that we gave are similar. So someone will say, okay, I'll go into a business with you. You and I are going to go into a business 50-50. But if the business fails, then you have to bear all of the costs. And since I'm the financial investor and you're the operator, you're going to operate the business and you're going to have to pay for all of the insurance, repair, and expenses. And if there's an insurance payout, that money goes to me first to recuperate my share of the business, then you get anything that's left. Which of you would love that? How great does that sound? Sounds? Amazing. Yes. I want to qualify that the brother is saying it in a sarcastic tone. So no, it's a horrible deal. But this happens, why? When you have an imbalance in power in the relationship, right? And one of the parties feels as if they have no choice except to go into that. So that person essentially negated all forms of liability from himself and guaranteed for himself all forms of profit, and that's impermissible, as he رَبِحَ مِمَّا لَمْ يَضْمَنْ. The daman, the guarantee, the warranty, the responsibility, the liability was all put on one partner, not the other. He then sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, وَلَا بِيْعْ مَا لَيْسَ عِنْدَكَ, nor selling what is not with you. Now this has a couple of different iterations or a couple of different scenarios. The first scenario is, brother, what kind of car do you have? Your name? Noor. Okay. And your name? Ibrahim. Ibrahim, I'll sell you Noor's Toyota for $30,000. Do you accept? Okay, give me the money. Gives me the money. I go to Noor. Hey, I heard your car was set. Brother, you talking about? I'm not selling my car. I have to go to work tomorrow. No, brother, I really need you to sell me your car. And I try to force you into selling your car. And you say, no, I can't sell your car. Look, I've already sold it. Ibrahim already said yes. Here's the money. No, that's on you. What did I just do? I caused dispute and disagreement and hatred between you and I because I went beyond the bounds of trying to sell your property. And I did the same thing with Ibrahim. Why? Because I promised him something that I can't deliver. So the first is بيع معين. لا يجوز بيع معين ليس عندك. It's not permissible to sell a specific thing that you don't own or have the ability to procure. What do we mean by a specific thing? One item that's owned by someone else. But if I say, I'll sell you a Toyota Camry similar to Noor's Camry, is that permissible? Yes, it's permissible. With what condition? With the condition that we specify the model, the make, the color, the general parameters of what I'm selling. Now I'm not selling a specific car, I'm selling a type of car. So this is like salam. The Prophet ﷺ permitted salam. The hadith of Ibn Abbas, that people would sell dates. He said whoever's going to sell dates before they're ripe, before they're even harvested, has to name the volume, the weight, the type, and the delivery date. Right? This is similar to drop shipping, right? Similar to all types of things when you go to the pharmacy and you purchase not an over-the-counter drug, but a prescription drug. Are they selling you a specific bottle? No, they're selling you a type of bottle. They're fulfilling a description or a prescription for a type of something to be sold. So that is not included in the hadith. What's the condition for you to be able to sell something according to its description? A bay' al-musuf, that you have to have the ability to procure it from the marketplace, and it has to be in season or have a supply chain that you have access to. So if I tried to sell you steel from China, according to its description, it would not be permissible for me. Do you know why? Because I have no contacts to anyone with steel in China, and I have no idea about steel in China. Okay? But if you wanted me to sell you, I don't know, leather bags, I could do that because I know someone who makes leather bags. See the difference? So you have to have the ability of procurement. The third is that I sell you something as the wakil, as the agent for the seller. And this is permissible as well. And this has two types. One is that I sell you something as the agent for the seller, and the seller has appointed me. And the other is that I sell you something as the agent for the seller, and the seller has not appointed me. So in the first, if I'm working for the seller and selling you something that's not mine, I'm simply acting on behalf of the principal, and that's permissible. But if I act on behalf of the principal, and I disclose to you, hey, Brother Ibrahim wants to buy your car. Do you want to sell it to him? And you say, yeah, I'll sell it to him. Why are you coming to me? I don't know. I overheard him saying something. I overheard you saying something. I figured I would put you two together. He's already agreed to me that he would buy it. Now, what do we need in order for this contract to be permissible? Brother Nuh has to say, I agree. This is called Bay' al-Fululi, the nosy man's sale. Somebody overhears people seeing something, he sees an opportunity, he arranges it. Who has to validate and approve it in the end? The person who owns it. If Nuh doesn't approve it, then it doesn't go through. Right? So that's the fourth type. So وَلَا تَبِعْ مَا لَيْسَ عِنْدَكَ. Do not sell what you do not own. This is found as well in the hadith of Hakim ibn Hizam radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Who was I believe the maternal uncle of Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. We'll take the questions at the end, inshallah. So this hadith also is an instance of qa'idat al-jam' wal-farq. And that is the principle of collation and difference. Meaning that the whole equal to the sum of its parts? Is the whole equal to the sum of its parts? No. It's something different. So if I have eggs and flour and butter and sugar and salt and what else? And flavoring, right? Each of the chocolate chips, each of them separately, right? I put them all together and I make chocolate cake. Is chocolate cake equal to each one of those separate parts? So when I mix things, it becomes something completely different. So the idea here is when you mix contracts, it becomes something completely different, and therefore you need to make sure that not only the outcome is permissible, but also the means to the outcome is permissible. So you can't just say, well, it's permissible because in the end of the day, everybody was happy. No, the means that you use to get to that outcome have to be permissible as well. As the ends do not justify the means. In the next hadith, it's the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who said, قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إذا اختلف المتبايعان وليس بينهما بينة فالقول ما يقول رب السلعة أو يتتاركان رواه الخمسة وصححه الحاكم. From Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, who said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say, when two transactors differ and there is no evidence between them, then the statement is whatever the Lord of the asset says. And I'm translating that like that specifically. or they both leave off the deal. Now, what does this mean? Some scholars have said, Rabbu Sil'a, the lord of the asset, the owner of the asset, is the seller. Others said, no, it's the buyer. And the truth is, depending upon the situation, it's the buyer or the seller. It depends upon what stage of sale they're at. So, what is al-bayyinah? When that's mentioned here in the hadith. مَا يُبَيِّنُ الْحَقَّ يُوضِحُهُ. It's whatever clarifies the truth and makes it clear. So, we have two hadith. One is this hadith. We also have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. الْبَيِّنَةُ عَلَى الْمُدَّعِ وَالْيَمِينُ عَلَى مَنْ أَنْكَرَ. That proof is, that evidence is asked for from the claimant, the person who claims something, and an oath is asked for the person who denies. So, if let's do a couple of scenarios. Let's just say that the person making the claim is the buyer. So I enter a shop. Okay, let's say for example I enter a cell phone store. What's your name? Faiz. Do you have a cell phone store? You do? Oh, I was going to say that would have been like the best opportunity. But let's just say that you have a cell phone store. So I enter your cell phone store. And I say to you, hey, show me that iPhone 14. And you show it to me. Okay, man, I'll buy it for you. How much does that cost? I don't know. 900? Okay, Faiz, I mean, we talked about this before. You said you're going to sell it to me for 750. So here's your money. And he says, I never said that. Why would I sell it to you for $150 less than market? It's absolutely insane. Who do we believe in this situation? The seller. Why? Because he's the owner. We don't make any sale unless there's mutual agreement. I agree to the price, but he doesn't agree to the price. Right? So here, the person who has the asset, he's the seller, and we take his word for it. What if I buy the iPhone 14, and he sells it to me? So now I have the asset with me, and I come back to him an hour later, and I say, brother, you sold me this iPhone. You said it was iPhone 14, and you said that it would have the super duper zoom in the camera. I have no idea about phones, guys. So you said that it has super zoom inside of the camera, and it doesn't have super zoom inside of the camera. So I need you to refund me my money. Faiz says, I never said that at all. I handed you the phone and showed it when you said iPhone 14, and I never said anything else. Who do we believe in this situation? The buyer or the seller? It depends. Why does it depend? Yeah, go ahead.
The statement, if the seller did not make the statement, then you believe on that.
Okay.
If the seller made a shady statement, then we're going to believe on the buyer's statement.
But remember, the hadith says, وَلَيْسَ بَيْنَهُمَا بَيِّنَةٌ. There's no evidence between the two. So when we look at the receipt, there's nothing to say that it has super zoom. When we look at the phone, there's nothing to say that it has super zoom. Whose statement do we take?
We take the description of the...
We take the seller. Why? Because we're making a claim about something from before the sale.
Didn't you say that
The evidence is on the one who's making the claim, right? So if I'm claiming that you said super zoom, I need to show where that was in a contract or a receipt or something. And if I had super zoom, I would have videotaped you, but I don't have super zoom. So we're back to where we started. So in this situation, the evidence is on the claimant, right? And al-qawlu rabb as-sila'. Al-qawlu qawlu rabb as-sila'. Excuse me. That's when the item is in the hands of the buyer, okay, and he's claiming something extra. What if it's in the hands of the buyer and he claims that something is deficient? Like he claims that something is broken, or that something is it's not an iPhone 14, that it's an iPhone 13, okay? Or something that has to do with some type of aib, some type of blemish or deficiency in the phone. Who do we believe in that situation? We buy who said depends? Why does it depend?
All sales are final.
All sales are final. Is it permissible to have all sales are final as a Sharia principle? When we in future chapters we'll find out that that's not a universal Islamically. There are times where we have to give refunds and rebates or replacements because of because of deficiencies and defects. So if it's the kind of defect that could only be a manufacturer's defect, who do we believe?
The buyer.
We believe the buyer. If it's a kind of defect that could only happen from the guy dropping his phone, then who do we believe? Then we believe the seller. Right? What if the person making the claim is the seller, but the phone is with the buyer? So how much did we say we're selling the iPhone for? $900. So he gave me the phone. Okay, I gave him the $900. I'm about to walk out I walk out the door. He sends him, no, tell that guy to come back here. Tell that guy to come back. It's not $900. It's actually $1,000. Who do we believe in this situation? We don't cash deal. We don't have a receipt. We don't have anything. Who do we believe?
Seller.
Why?
Because he's not out of the shop. If it is
No. He left the shop. I left the shop. I'm getting in my car. I'm about to drive away. The guy says, no, I need you to come back inside. Finish some paperwork.
Still,
I come back in. He says, hey,
he has the right.
you only gave me 900. That's actually 1,000.
Yeah, he has a right
Why?
because he owns the phone.
He doesn't own it anymore. He already sold it. The cash was given, the asset was given, and they separated. It was the responsibility of each of them at that time to count the cash and make sure that the item was correct. So in this situation, al-qawlu qawl rabb as-sila'. The statement is the statement of the one who owns the asset at that time, who is the seller. Why? Because he might feel that he's just trying to get more cash out of this person.
But if the buyer,
Yeah, the buyer. I mean the buyer.
if
Thank
the
you.
buyer knows this phone is $1,100 and he's selling for cheap,
Then why wouldn't he take the deal?
he doesn't know the actual price. Maybe the seller doesn't know the price.
Seller's bad seller. Okay. Another situation. The seller is making the claim, and the phone is already in possession of the buyer. Okay? So we said that, whose statement is it now? We said it is the statement of the buyer. Another situation. The seller is making the claim, and the phone is still with the seller. Who do we believe?
Seven.
Seller. Why?
Transaction is
Transaction is not
not complete.
complete. Let's say, and this is the last one, let's say that both the buyer and the seller are there. And he says, iPhone 14, yeah, how much? $900. Here's your cash. Hands him the cash, he hands him the phone. They're both still standing there. Now, the guy looks at the phone, he goes, hey, iPhone 14, but this is supposed to be blue, you gave me a white one. And the seller says, blue's $950, you wanted the one for $900. What proof do we have that either of them the statement is true? We have no proof. What's the tiebreaker that could be brought in? The buyer goes, Wallahi, I said blue. Because the seller is claiming, he's al-mudda'i, he's claiming something, and the buyer, all he has to do, وَالْيَمِينُ عَلَى مَنْ أَنْكَرَ, taking a yameen, swearing by Allah's name, is what is obligatory on the one who denies that. So essentially, by invoking Allah's name, he's denying what he says. So what does the seller do in that instance? He says, Wallahi, the blue is $950. So now he's making a claim, and the defendant is the buyer. So now each of them is making a claim against the other, and each of them wants something from each other. What do they do in this situation? أو يتتاركان, or they leave off the transaction. So when both of them have made a claim and swore that what they said was true, the only way out, cancel the transaction. Take your money back, take your phone back, no need to fight, no need to have disputes, everything is good. Walk away. So this hadith gives us a rubric for deciding how to go through disputes when we don't have appropriate evidence. Now, here's a caveat. Replace the iPhone and the $900 with a cake and $20. So now I came in to buy a cake and it cost $20. And so I take the cake home and I eat it. And then I came home the next day and I say, you sold me a cake. It was supposed to be chocolate cake and it's vanilla cake. Okay, so what do you want? I want my money back. Okay, where's the cake? I ate it. In Sunan al-Daraqutni, there's another narration that mentions وَالْمَبِيعُ مُسْتَهْلَكٌ, right? That the item of sale has been consumed, right? And in another narration, in the Musnad Imam Ahmed, it mentions, or وَالْمَبِيعُ غَيْرُ مُسْتَهْلَكٌ, in the narration of Imam Ahmed, it says وَالسِّلْعَةُ كَمَا هِي. That all of these scenarios apply when the asset is as it was. Has it been consumed? Nothing's happened to it. Right? So the point is that this hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu is a fundamental in understanding how to diminish disputes amongst Muslims in their sales. And all of it ends with what? All of it ends with either asking for evidence or going back to whose right is original or whose right is fundamental, or leaving it off because there's no good in any dispute. The next hadith is the hadith of al-Kharaj bil-Dhaman. وعن عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الخراج بالضمان رواه الخمسة وصححه الترمذي. This hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Aisha said, the Prophet ﷺ said that rewards are contingent on liability. There's a story behind this hadith. And in fact, some of the narrations, it says, قَضَى النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ أَنَّ الْخَرَاجَ بِالضَّمَانِ. The Prophet ﷺ ruled, meaning there was a dispute, he ruled that reward is contingent on liability. So what's the story? There was a man who had a farm in Medina. He needed help on that farm. So he went to a man from the Ansar. That man from the Ansar had a slave boy that lived on his farm. So he said, let me hire him for the day. And if let me take him and hire him for the day. And so when he hired him for the day, the man went, he worked on the farm, he gathered all of the crops, they went to the market, they sold everything. The man made a lot of money that day. So the man who owned the slave boy, he said, I gave him to work. You should make me a partner. You should share your profit with me. Why does he not share the profit? Why?
Just one day.
No.
It wasn't agreed upon.
It wasn't agreed upon. What did he agree upon? He agreed upon that the boy would work on his farm for what? For money for that day. So the agreement was a lease. The agreement wasn't a partnership. So in a lease, you offset the long-term risk of giving an asset out for an upfront payment. But in a partnership, you assume the long-term risk for a larger long-term payment or long-tail payment. So it's all about when do you want to get paid and how much risk do you want to assume. You don't want to assume risk? Do a lease. You don't have a problem with risk, you don't have a problem with an appetite for risk, then go into a partnership. You'll bear the responsibility of the loss, but you'll also get the gains in the long term. So the Prophet ﷺ here said, if you want the reward, you have to bear the liability. And this is similar to what we mentioned about رِبْحُ مَا لَمْ يُضْمَنْ. So نَهَى عَنْ رِبْحِ مَا لَمْ يُضْمَنْ is the opposite of al-Kharaj bil-Dhaman. There are two sides of one coin. And so this hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha is a fundamental in understanding what the objective of a contract is. And once that objective has been agreed to, it cannot be changed. وعن جابر بن عبد الله رضي الله تعالى عنه أنه سمع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول عام الفتح وهو بمكة إن الله ورسوله حرم بيع الخمر والميتة والخنزير والأصنام فقيل يا رسول الله أرأيت شحوم الميتة فإنه تطلى بها السفن وتدهن بها الجلود ويستصبح بها الناس فقال لا هو حرام ثم قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عند ذلك قاتل الله اليهود إن الله لما حرم عليهم شحومها جملوها ثم باعوها فأكلوا ثمنه متفق عليه وفي رواية عند أبي داود وإن الله إذا حرم أكل شيء حرم ثمنه. So from Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anhu that he heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say in the year of Fath Mecca, the year of victory, while he was in Mecca, indeed Allah and His Messenger have forbidden the sale of wine and carrion, dead animals, and swine, pigs, and asnam, idols. He said, O Messenger of Allah, or it was said, O Messenger of Allah, what about the fat of dead animals? Because we use it to waterproof our boats and to polish our leather, and people use it in their lanterns. He said, no, it is haram. And then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that moment said, may Allah fight the Jews. Indeed, Allah had forbidden them from the fat of these animals And so they rendered it, meaning they gathered it and they melted it down, and they sold it, and they ate its price. This is the narration of Bukhari and Muslim. And in Abu Dawood and in others, there's an addition. And indeed, whenever Allah forbids the consumption of something, He also forbids its price. So this hadith is a fundamental in showing that there are certain things which are forbidden. There are two types of forbidden things. Al-Muharram li'aynihi wal-Muharram likasbihi. That which is forbidden due to its essence, the material that it is, and those things that are forbidden due to earning from it. So it is impermissible to try to take something that's essence is forbidden and then sell it to be able to make it halal. It doesn't work that way. So what did they do? They took the fat of dead animals and they rendered it into oil, and they sold the oil, and then they ate the price. So, so this shows us that taking one haram thing and simply turning it around to another type of haram thing does not make it halal. This is called hila. This is artifice or ruse, where we try to change or trick or use apparent changes in something to change the ruling.
When you say eat the price, you just mean they spent the money, right?
They spend the money, yeah. So this idea of like eating something, in especially in transactions and especially with haram, is very common, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to those to many times in the Quran. يَأْكُلُونَ السُّحْتِ, that they eat filth. What's the filth that they were eating? The donations of the people in their, so the monks and the rabbis and the priests, they would go out to people and they would say, oh, you have more crops this year? Riba. This is interest. You're not allowed to take more than you need. It says, give it to the Lord. Give it to the Lord, and then they eat it at church. Right? So this is suht, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, أَيُّمَا لَحْمٍ نَبَتَ عَلَى سُحْتٍ فَالنَّارُ أَوْلَى بِهِ. Any flesh that's been fed by filth, then the hellfire has more right to it. So we have to be very careful about the halal and haram when not only the food that we eat, but the money that we use to buy that food. So here, this hadith, notice, the people said, but O Messenger of Allah, we could do something with these fats. We can waterproof boats, we can use it for our leather. People melt it down and they use it for lanterns. The Prophet said, no, it is haram. What is the Prophet ﷺ implying here?
Any halal thing from the haram is not permissible.
And therefore, he's encouraging what instead?
Use the halal means.
To create an ecosystem of halal. So if you need fat in order to waterproof your boats and shine your leather and use in lanterns and so on and so forth, it should be from animals that have been raised and slaughtered appropriately. So what I'm doing is I'm imbuing an idea of ihsan from the time that animal is born until the time that animal is dead, and that I should only be using those things that I have sought the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take. Right? Inna Allah tayyibun la yaqbalu illa tayyiba. Allah is wholesome and He only accepts those things that are wholesome. So I'm trying to make every single aspect of this supply chain of this animal from the time it lives until the time it dies to be done with purpose and kindness and ihsan. And so that it's not frivolous. Therefore, if we need these things, we make sure that we're controlling the resources that we have. The next hadith is the hadith of Maymuna radiyallahu ta'ala anha. زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن فأرة وقعت في سمن فماتت فيه فسئل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عنها فقال ألقوها وما حوله وكلوه. رواه البخاري. وزاد أحمد والنسائي في سمن جامد. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا وقعت الفأرة في السمن فإن كان جامدا فألقوها وما حولها وإن كان مائعا فلا تقربوه. رواه أحمد وأبو داود وقد حكم عليه البخاري وأبو حاتم بالوهم. So these two hadith are related to each other. From Maymuna radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said that a mouse fell into saman. Saman is what? Clarified butter, ghee. Any other words? That's it, right? Clarified butter, ghee, right? And it died in that ghee. So the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam was asked about it. So he said, throw it out and what's around it, and then eat from it. And this was in a narration, this was narrated by Bukhari. In an addition on this narration from Ahmad and Nasa'i, it said it fell into solid ghee. As we know, ghee heats up, it becomes liquid, and when it becomes cold, it becomes solid. And from Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, when a mouse falls into ghee and it is solid, then throw it out and what is around it, and if it is liquid, then do not go near it. This is narrated by Ahmad and Abu Dawood, and al-Bukhari and Abu Hatim said that this narration is a mistake, meaning that it is most probably a statement of Abu Hurairah or someone else, and it was attributed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the fiqh of this hadith, there are several things here. Number one is the principle that halal and haram, when they are mixed and indiscernible, they're not permissible to use. Right? This is why the ulama make a difference between al-ma' al-kathir wal-ma' al-qalil. Lots of water and a little bit of water. So if I have this cup and I take an eyedropper and I put 1 drop of urine in it, am I going to drink from this cup? Why? Because I'm absolutely certain that there's najasa in this cup. Okay? But if I take an eyedropper of urine and I drop it into a lake, can I make wudu from the lake? Why? Because it's so much that it pushes it away, right? So, so when we have an instance of halal and haram being mixed and indiscernible, then it is impermissible to consume. However, if we have the ability to separate haram from halal, either exactly or predominantly, then it's still permissible to consume what is halal. So this ghee, he said, take the mouse out, take whatever's around the mouse, and then throw it out, and then eat from the rest. So when we have earnings from businesses, for example, in the stock market, you go and you check on a stock. Company does permissible things. All of their products are halal. Everything is fine. You stay invested in the stock for an entire year. At the end of the year, you get a yearly report that said, this year, we made 0.5% of interest income. Do you have to sell the stock? No. What do? You take that 0.5%, you multiply it by the gains on the stock, and you give that away in charity. You don't have to liquidate that position. Why? Because you're able to discern between the halal and the haram. Quantify the halal, quantify the haram, and separate the two. So whenever, and this is important, it's an important point. This is when it happens after the fact. It's not that you go into something and you say the majority of what they're doing is haram, or even a large portion is haram, and I'm still going to do it anyway and then separate it. Right? That has its own situation. The default is that it is not permissible. So this hadith of Maymuna radiyallahu ta'ala anha is a fundamental in understanding that halal and haram, as long as they can be quantified, that the haram interacting with the halal does not make the halal haram, and therefore we can still enjoy the permissible gains and permissible things that we have from food as well as business and so on and so forth. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, we will conclude for tonight. And we have reached to Hadith 811 in the book. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. And happy to take any questions if you have them. Ibrahim has the first question. He has.
Nosy man. What if the nosy man got out of the
Bay' al-Fuduli, essentially he might expect to be rewarded as an agent, right? Or he might just be trying to have goodwill and facilitate something for others. Yeah.
hopeful broker.
Hopeful broker, yeah, that's a good way to put it, right? So I'm drawing a blank on the name of the Sahabi radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ gave him a dirham, and he said, go to the market and buy a sheep for me. So the Prophet ﷺ, so he went to the marketplace, and I want to say that's Abu Sa'id, but I can't remember. He goes to the marketplace, and he buys 2 sheep. And then he stays in the marketplace, and he sells one of the sheep for a dirham. And he comes back to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, here's your sheep and here's your dirham. And the Prophet ﷺ said, how did that happen? And he explains to him what happened. And then he said that he said, in that case, take the sheep and take the dirham. Right? So commenting on this, ulama said that it has to be approved by the principal in this situation. Right? As long as the last person approves it, then this type of contract is called aqd mawquf. It's a suspended contract. What do we mean by suspended? Think of it like we have valid contract here, invalid contract here. It's suspended in the middle. We're not sure. If he doesn't approve, invalid. If he does approve, valid. Right? Yeah. Yes.
Shaykh, a couple of weeks ago, I went and bought multivitamins because they were on sale. I bought 2, and I didn't read description. When I came home, I read that it has gelatin bovine of gelatin.
Bovine gelatin, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that gelatin is haram, I can't take it, but I heard that I can drink it if, how to say, it became the medicine. But right now, I read the hadith, what you said right now, I can't do if I can't drink it.
So bovine gelatin is gelatin that's taken from a cow. So gelatin can come from, it can be porcine, meaning from the pig. It can be bovine, meaning from the from the cow. It can be from seaweed as well. It can also be fish. So if you're going to use something with bovine gelatin, I would recommend that you look for those things that have bovine gelatin that have a K or a U on the thing. That means that it's kosher and it's been certified for appropriate slaughter. If it is, then that's no problem. If it's not, then it's better to avoid. Yeah. Yes.
Options or puts. Is it haram or halal?
So there's a number of videos that I've done on options and puts on my YouTube channel and also the Zoya.finance YouTube channel. I'd refer you to that. That has all of the detail that you need, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah, but in general, I hold them to be permissible, but many scholars do not. So just as a disclosure. Did you have? No? Again.
You mentioned a few scenarios that the seller and the buyer, maybe a common one in the Middle East, the taxi ride at the end of the taxi.
Okay.
مش هنختلف.
Yeah.
You get to your destination.
And then يختلف.
Who's the right in that situation?
Oh, who's the right person in that situation? I would say if they have an addad,
And if it was Addad, there would be no ikhtilaf.
yeah, that's why they don't use it, right? Because they're trying to get over on you, right?
Yeah, especially when you look like a foreigner and they're like, no,
Yes. Yeah. In that situation, I would say you would have to go to the fair market price because they provided a service.
So the what?
Yeah, I mean, just insist whatever the dad says. I didn't do it. Okay, what does it usually, cost? That's why it's important to know taxi amounts before you travel somewhere.
When it comes to doing business with other Muslims, right? To what extent do I have to, I guess, ask or investigate whether their income is halal or not? So, for example, if it's something obvious where there's another Muslim person that wants to do business with you,
Mhm.
or invest in another business with you, let's say it's a restaurant or something, right? And you know that they get their income from like a couple businesses that are halal, but then one of their businesses is like a gas station that sells alcohol, tobacco, lottery, things
Sure.
like that. So, I mean, when it comes to that, like, how does that work? Like, do I have to make sure that all of their income is halal, or?
That's a good question. So no, you don't have the responsibility or the liability to investigate the sources of anyone else's income. The Prophet ﷺ did business with the Jews, and the Jews committed the sin of riba by the text of the Quran. But he still did business with them. But he did business with them in those things that were halal and those things that were permissible. So therefore, you should number one, only be doing business with them in those things that are halal and permissible, and then number two, ensure that when you do, especially in partnerships and especially in investments, ensure that the money that you're contributing is not being used by them as leverage for taking out loans and expanding the business. That's a lot, especially, in real estate deals. A lot of people go, well, it's real estate, it's permissible, there's no problem. Okay, what do I have to do? All you have to do is put down $10,000. Okay, I put down $10,000, and you put down, and now we got $100,000. Then the developer takes that $100,000, goes to the bank and says, look, I've got rights to this land and $100,000. I need you to loan me $3 million. So they're using your money as the basis of interest-bearing loan. And then you get the ownership, and then later out they do a cash-out refi through another loan and all that kind of stuff. So be very careful about your money being used in a partnership for someone else to take, loans out with. But if you're contributing, you say, for example, I'm going to contribute $50,000, and you're going to contribute $50,000, or we're going to buy this business. I have no responsibility of doing an audit on your business or making sure where you got your money from, right? Now, that's not to say that that's the best thing to do, right? We're talking about baseline permissibility. Now, if you know that a person openly deals in haram, and you feel that doing business with them might encourage them to continue doing that, then you would want to stay away.
So, Prophet Muhammad
Sallallahu
used to
Alaihi
do
Wasallam.
business with the Jews, like a rehen transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So how the rehen transaction worked? Because you gave away your item and you took the money.
Yes.
And whenever you returned the money and you took back your item,
Yes.
did you pay extra for that?
No.
So how the Jews were doing business without taking interest?
So for the Rahan transaction, which is basically like pawn shop, right? How do you make money off of pawning items if you aren't going to charge interest? And essentially, they're hoping that you're not going to be able to bring that to repay them, because the value that they give you is less than the value of the item of collateral. So if they take the item as collateral, then they're hoping, well, I can take the item as collateral, and then I can sell it and I can make money off of that. However, the Prophet ﷺ said, "La yughlaqu ar-rahnu min rahinihi," that the item cannot be that a person who pawns an item cannot be taken in its entirety from him. So, for example, let's say, I put a cell phone as as collateral, and I take $300, and that cell phone is worth $500. When I come back and I can't pay, right, then the person who's pawning it has to do what? He sells the phone, and then he takes his $300 back and he gives me $200. Why? To cut off people taking advantage of others. Yeah. The brother here had a question?
Yeah, it's regarding the hadith where they asked about like the using the fat and everything.
Using me?
The fat of the fallen animal. So that's sort of.
Ah, yes.
So in that regards, like for example, is it all like the boar bristle brushes and all that stuff? Is that also
Yeah, you should not be using boar bristle brushes. No, at all. Yeah, anything that comes from the pig or anything which is haram should not be used.
So
And horse hair is better anyway.
a lot of beard brushes come out, but they're all like I heard boar.
You gotta do your homework. You gotta make sure. I've made that mistake in the past too. Yeah, you gotta read. Yes.
Last question. I know what do you call it? Betting is wrong.
Yes.
It's haram. If you sign up for an app, it's like I need to go into stocks. You sign up for an app, and they say we're going to give you free stocks for signing up for the app.
Sure.
Are those stocks halal or haram?
They're permissible for you. You're not betting or gambling. They're paying it to you as a reward for signing up to their service. That's all. Last question. I have to go because I
I
have
have
to.
one.
Okay, last, and then second last, and then third last, and then fourth last.
Do we make qiyas between other animals that die in the ingredients, for example, flies or critters or anything? And then what about like a moldy bread scenario? Can we use the non-moldy portions?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, the mouse here is would just be a placeholder for any other thing that would die into something, or even if you have something like you said, a loaf of bread, half of it's gone bad, the other half is good. You don't have to throw all of it away. Okay? As long as you can make sure that it's not harmful. So, which was it? First last, then second last.
Is there a halal financing way for first-time house buyers?
Is there a halal financing way for first-time home buyers? I mean, there are several companies out there that do home financing. And last Ramadan, I answered this question, I think maybe 15-20 minute video on the Masjid's website. Yeah, so check that one out, inshallah ta'ala.
So you mentioned drop shipping is allowed?
Yes.
Even you are not holding the ownership of
Yes.
items.
Yes. Dropshipping is permissible as long as you have access to the supply chain. And number two, that you assist in the return process. So where a lot of drop shippers make the mistake is they'll, for example, buy from Alibaba, and then they'll have it shipped directly to the person. They'll make the money, and then now when the person wants to return the item, and they contact them, they say, "No, I'm just a drop shipper. I don't have anything to do with it." No, you're the one that I contracted with to buy this, not Alibaba, right? So you have to be able to process the returns, or at least facilitate the returns. Otherwise, you're taking undue profit.
If your statement is as is, no returns.
No, it's not permissible to have as is, no return. Yeah. Yes.
Similar to this, if you're buying items, let's say mobile phones from an auction website, for example, like 50 mobile phones, and it says it's assets, no return. This auction, is it permissible?
Were you able to inspect the items first? Are you able to, and you're not able to return them?
Yeah, but they will put the grade there, like this is grade B. But you know, the grading system is different from one company to another. But of course, they are going to write it there as this is our grading system. After reading this grading specification, is it permissible to like participate in such auctions? Or?
So I'm going to look into those types of websites first, and formulate an opinion, formulate an answer, and then come back and give it to you. I don't want to answer off the fly, and then I haven't understood the question completely, if that's okay. So inshallah ta'ala, next class I'll have the answer. We'll start with that, inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك جزاكم الله خيرا